Welcome to the Pet Loss Companion. I'm Ken Dolan-Del Vecchio, and I'm here with my friend and co-author Nancy Saxton-Lopez and a special guest who we'll be introducing momentarily. This is a program that grew out of the book that Nancy and I wrote that's called The Pet Loss Companion, Healing Advice from Family Therapists who Lead Pet Loss Groups. And this program allows us to expand our reach and actually have a discussion with you. And a lot of what we do in the program is we read letters that people have sent us about their much-loved animal companions, their lives, their passing, how they're doing with their healing. And if you would like to write to us and have us respond during the program, you can reach me at kenddv@gmail.com, Nancy at Saxton-Lopez@csmpc.com. And everything I'm saying right now is captured also in the description that's attached to the program, whether you're watching live or whether you are listening to one of the replays. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. You can support us in a number of ways. You can subscribe to our Substack, which is relatively new, where we post the letters and photographs that people have sent us and our correspondence, and sometimes there's correspondence back and forth for a bit. There's a $5 subscription fee for that. We just want to let you know that so that you're not surprised by it. You can give us a gift via Venmo or PayPal or a monthly subscription. All of this we certainly appreciate, but we also want you to know that we do this really as a gift, a labor of love to the community. And so we're not expecting you to pay anything unless you are so inclined. And if you do write to us, please let us know if it's okay to share what you've sent. Because if it's not, that's fine too. And one or both of us will write back to you in response. But if you can clarify that for us, that's really helpful. The program is a friend of Dakin Humane Society in Springfield, Massachusetts. It's a multi-service animal rescue shelter adoption program. And one of the programs that they sponsor is a monthly pet loss support group via Zoom that I facilitate. It's on the second Tuesday of every month from 6 p.m. Eastern to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And you can Zoom in from anywhere in the world, and in fact, people do. This past week we had people from Australia and from Canada and from across the U.S. There's no cost to you, so the link is in the description as well. And please take advantage of the program if you think that would be helpful. And also, please subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already, and you find this program is helpful, because that affects the algorithm in a way that it makes it more likely that people who are searching for pet loss support will find the program and therefore benefit from it. And finally, we'd like you to know that we have an affiliate relationship with a company called Bere. And Bere makes these really wonderfully crafted granite plaques, memorial plaques, that are kind of thing that you would find at a memorial garden or a gravesite, or maybe inside at a place where you keep mementos of your animal companion. And if you purchase a plaque from Bere through the link in our description, we will then get a little bit of support as well. So it's kind of like we get a little kickback if you go through our link. And Nancy has the example that they gave to us. We wanted to make sure that we knew what we were supporting
heavy.
here. And it's heavy, it's very substantial. So now I'm going to have the privilege of introducing our guest, whose name is Amy Castro. And Amy is a professional speaker, author, trainer, and consultant. She's a columnist for Pet Age magazine. She is the founder and president of Starlight Outreach and Rescue, a Houston, Texas area 501c3 nonprofit animal rescue whose mission is to rescue animals from the community, support shelters in providing medical treatment for at-risk pets, community outreach for pet owners in need, and educating pet parents to help keep pets in homes and off the streets. Amy started the Starlight Pet Talk Podcast in 2023 as an extension of the rescue's education efforts to be able to reach more pet parents and help them solve their biggest problems so they can live their best lives with the pets who they love. Amy is also a proud U.S. Air Force veteran and has personally fostered more than 3,000 animals during her time in animal rescue. So a huge thank you, Amy, for everything that you've done. And also you can learn more about Amy and her work at www.starlightoutreachandrescue.org, www.starlightpettalk.com, and www.amycastro.com. And her phone number is also in the description. Again, I went through that really fast, but all of this is in the description that accompanies this program. So welcome, Amy. And Nancy, you want to get us started?
Oh, Amy, thank you for all you've done.
Yeah.
I mean,
I wear a lot of hats, but thank you for having me.
It's great to have you.
Yeah, rescue is not easy.
No,
You know,
it is not.
And I would like to offline talk about what you do with pet parents and how you educate them, because we all know I do some work at a veterinary social as a veterinary social worker at an ER specialty vet.
Mm.
And I mean, you see a lot of people that just love their animals, but they don't know how to take care of them really well. And so that would be good offline. But how did you get into this all to begin with?
I mean, I've been a lifelong animal lover. I've always loved animals since I was a kid, and worked at a veterinary hospital all through high school and college. Thought I was going to be a veterinarian. Lo and behold, I struggled with high school chemistry to the point where I failed out. So I thought there's no way I'm going to make it through vet school. So I kind of moved on to other things, but always had a passion for caring for animals. And then, the whole rescue thing started when they literally built our city animal shelter. They got rid of the old rundown horrible facility and built a brand new facility within walking distance, like literally across the street from my house. So at that point, my daughter was going off to college, and I thought, what am I going to do with all those hours I spend going to kid activities, which I'm sure some people can relate to. So I started volunteering, and it sucked me in. And I'm still involved.
Well, we're glad you are. So,
Thank you.
we're going to talk about, I think tonight, to concentrate on when to adopt or how that process works, potentially first time or after a beloved animal has died, or to have another, adoptee or, rescue. So what are your thoughts about that? What would you say? What's the process?
I think we have to think about fit. And I'm big. I do this in my work with, whether it's hiring a human being for a job, like what is the right fit, or whether it's adopting a pet, what is the right fit? The right fit for you is not necessarily going to be the same thing for your neighbor and their lifestyle or what you saw in a movie. And that's where I think we see a lot of people making mistakes, is they're influenced by other elements other than who they are as a human being and where they are at that point in life, whether it's, career wise, family wise, post grief, or, in grief.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think really taking a look at those elements. I know, I'll just give an example for me. From the time that I worked at a veterinarian, we had a gentleman that came in, and he had the most gorgeous Doberman Pinscher, and it was so well behaved, and such just a beauty to behold looking at that dog. And so in my mind, I was always like, one of these days I'm going to have a dog like that. And when I was an adult and married and had a child of my own, when my daughter was about 10, we made the move and got one. And although the dog lived to be 13 years and he was a beloved family member, in many ways, we did not do the right thing by the dog, because that dog needed a lot more activity, a lot more enrichment. And we were more like running to kids' swim meets and then wanting to sit on the sofa, not wanting to take the dog for a 3-mile run. I was past that. That was in my Air Force days. I should have had the dog then, maybe. But, and so I kind of always felt bad that the dog was always, Jack, go lay down. Jack, go lay down. It's like, well, he's not laying down because he needed exercise. And so that's been in the back of my mind as, as just the personal mistakes that I have made in selecting pets at the, for the wrong reasons, I guess.
Mhm.
And then in the work that I do with the rescue, I see a lot of people that are looking to surrender pets, and it's,
Mhm.
wrong pet, wrong time, etc. So, you know, I think it's being realistic about who you are, how you live, what kind of time you have to commit to an animal, and then starting to investigate, whether it's possible breeds, if you're looking for, a dog you were going to get from a breeder, or even going into a rescue or a shelter, to really ask some questions about that animal, because we don't, as a rescue person, we don't always know the animal's background. I don't know what
Mhm.
breed it is. It looks like a lab mix to me, but then you do a DNA test or something like that, and you find out it's nothing like that. So it's really about trying to get to know the animal and kind of going from there. But there's just so many factors that feed
Right.
into it. You just have to ask yourself a lot of questions.
And doesn't finances come into that too, or lifestyle?
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure. Because some breeds, French bulldogs, for example, are
We
super
know.
popular right now. And not only are they little hard-headed critters,
Oh, yeah.
but they have a lot of medical problems and they cost a lot of money. And then you wonder, I mean, we've found them wandering the streets, and it's like, I know somebody paid
Aw.
thousands of dollars for that dog, but probably couldn't afford it at that point. And
Wow.
it's always a red flag to me as somebody who is adopting out pets when somebody says, because we have relatively low adoption fees, significantly less than the amount of money that we put into the pet to even just, vet it and spay and neuter it. And when somebody says, well, I don't have the full amount for the adoption fee, I have to wait to my next paycheck. Like
Oh boy.
right there, I want to say, then you don't need to get a pet, because, think about the $60 bag of dog food, if you can even get a good bag of dog food for that
Yeah,
these
for that
days.
money.
And the vetting, and then the, inevitable incidents that happen that can, cost you a lot of money and can be financially catastrophic.
Yeah.
Amy, can you talk some about how somebody who's lost their animal companion can best make the decision when the time is right, and what you've seen as examples of doing it in a way that works out really well, and then maybe doing it too soon and having some additional pain as a result?
Hmm. I mean, I've kind of seen both sides of it.
Yeah.
I've seen people who, the best medicine, if you want to call it that, is having something else to occupy their mind.
Mhm.
That said, it depends on how that person is going into that. If it is, I have this void in my life because I used to dedicate a lot of time and attention to my dog, or I used to run with my dog. And so I'm looking for another dog who could benefit from living the lifestyle that I live and run with me. And, then I've seen those kinds of things actually work out quite well. I think where it can become a problem is when you have this, I mean, and I am not a grief expert. You all are the grief experts, but I know from personal experience and experience of family members that oftentimes when somebody passes away, we have this idealized version of what life was like. Or my
Mhm.
dog is 14 years old and it passed away, and boy, he was a great dog the last 5 years, but we forgot what he was like when he was a puppy, all the
Right.
things he destroyed and all the things he tore up. And so I think if you're looking to it's one thing to fill a void. I think it's another thing to replace that animal and think that it's going to be that same relationship. I think you have to have a very conscious conversation either with your family or just inside your own head to say, this is not going to be Buddy. This is going to be
Mhm.
another fluffy dog who's
Right.
probably completely different, may not like the same things. And then kind of going through that fit process again, just setting the grief aside as one element of it, and then just really focusing on, okay, this is how my life is at this moment in time. Is this a good decision for me? Because the decision you made for the pet that passed away may have been, I mean, I know there are such situations where it was recent and that's terrible, but if you had 14 years with your pet, the decision you made to adopt a pet or that kind of pet was 14 years ago.
Right.
There's no way you're the same person and living the same life as you did 14 years ago. And the animal would have obviously changed.
Yeah.
So I think you have to really think about it. And I think not make a knee jerk decision to do that, because that's where you tend to see some regret.
Have you seen that where people adopt and really they adopted too soon, or they adopted impulsively and they got a dog or a cat or whatever sort of animal companion who wasn't a good fit and they had to bring them back. Those kinds of things happen.
Yes, I mean it definitely happens. I think a good shelter, a good rescue, and certainly a good breeder who is, charging
A lot of money.
significant funds, a lot of money, you know, we need to do our due diligence, and I know we do. I mean, we have an extensive application,
Hmm.
and there are things that we do that other groups don't do. There are things that other groups do that I'm like, that's a little extreme. But at the same time, I want to know, I want to dig into that. Who are you? How do you live? I mean, I don't want a financial statement, but
I was going to say, I felt like the last two dogs I adopted, that was like the next thing they were going to ask. Let me see
Yeah.
your
I see under your
finances.
bed, Ken. Yeah, I mean, and they have their reasons, but I think sometimes we put so many parameters that we actually create barriers. And I see rescues that have had animals for an extensive period of time. And it's like, well, if you didn't make it so hard or impossible to adopt, like I wouldn't go through those hoops for you. And I know how this works. But I think it needs to be a conversation. The whole point of our application, and we don't even call it an application, we call it an adoption questionnaire. I want to know about you, how you live, what your past pets have been like, because if you tell me, for example, I've had 5 Belgian Malinois over the past 25 years, then I know you're probably ready for a high energy, high drive, high whatever. If you're like, I've had 3 Shih Tzus in the last 20 years and you want to adopt a Malinois puppy and you're 85 years old, I'm like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. Not for my rescue. I mean, it's not going to be, despite what you think, I can tell you it's not going to be a fit because, of those 3,000 that I've fostered, that's just when I stopped counting. I've had a lot of animals come through the door and very few come back, but it's because we work on that fit piece. And I think even a trial, I think and people struggle with that. They'll say, oh, I would never, because we do a lifetime return, like lifetime.
Oh,
And
that's nice. Yeah.
and not everybody has the luxury of doing that.
Right.
We can do that because we cross fingers that we've only had to since 2017
Take-
only had to take maybe 5 back in all that time. But if we were one of the organizations that's adopting about 600 dogs a month,
Wow.
they can't do that. I mean, there's just not the space to do that. But taking something on a trial basis or do a foster to adopt, whatever terminology
That's
you want to
that's what I
use.
got. One of my dogs was a foster to adopt. It
Yeah.
was like as many weeks as you wanted, and then after like 3 days, we were like, she was ours.
You're convinced, yeah. And some people, some people it's a matter of, maybe you have lost a pet, but you have other pets in the house, or you have other people in the house, and so you need time to see if it's a good fit for everybody involved. But even I've seen people struggle with that too, because once they're like, oh, I could never give it back, and it's like, well, better to give it back than to live miserably and make the animal miserable because you're not living the appropriate lifestyle for each other. So I tell them, go home and tell your kids, this is not your dog. You are babysitting it for Miss Amy for just a week or whatever it is, and just so there's that little bit of separation before they get too attached.
That's really good, and I would wager that that's very good for somebody who is at the hopefully at a more settled place in their grief, and they want to adopt, and they're not 100% sure that this is the right time. They can do this, and I do think, do most shelters? I think you said most shelters now do that sort of foster to adopt.
I can't speak to necessarily most. I mean, I think that it's certainly something that you can, I would say, so there's, to me, when I think of the word shelter, I think about a city, county run facility. Most of those don't have the luxury of saying, oh yeah, take it on a trial basis and we'll take it back. It depends on their funding. It depends on their space, that kind of thing. Some of them, even like the one where I volunteered for 10 years, they had a 30-day, like it was in their procedures, but they didn't necessarily advertise it as a 30-day return. But Lord forbid, if you came in on the 31st day, that dog was yours. So ask questions, ask questions if you can foster to adopt. Ask what the return policy would be and how that worked, so that you know what you're getting yourself into. And I think, maybe even if fostering to adopt is not a good fit for you, maybe volunteer, go to the shelter, be around the dogs or the cats or whatever it is that you've lost, and see how it feels to be interacting with them. If it brings you joy, then maybe you're ready. If looking at that cat's face makes you start crying because you say, "Oh, that reminds me so much of, Simon when he was little," then maybe you're not ready to go through that if it's triggering that grief for you.
Okay,
So that's good that it's a process, right? You're talking about that you really have to know yourself, know your family, know your life, know what you can afford. And unfortunately, I know, like we were talking, some people just come in, oh, let's go get an animal. Let's go, get a dog. Let's go get a cat. And they don't necessarily go through that process. And like we're talking about, fostering to find out, because if you do have other pets in the house, you want to make sure that they get, along, So
Right.
I had a client they just fostered a dog, but unfortunately they had to take the dog back because the dog has such a terrible separation anxiety. And so now they're fostering another one, so hopefully that will work. But sometimes those things unfortunately happen, right? There are
Right.
certain situations with certain dogs or cats or animals that
Right.
there are problems.
And sometimes it doesn't appear immediately. I mean, that's
Right.
to me that's one of the benefits of adopting a dog that has already been in a foster type situation
Right.
or maybe has been in with the organization for a while versus I saw a dog online who was, picked up as a stray 3 days ago and now its stray hold is up and I'm going to run in there and adopt it. It's like the shelter alone hasn't even gotten an idea of what that dog is like at this point. And I have experienced personally, and it's sort of a joke around my household. It's boy, this dog is awesome. Give it 72 hours because when they first come in, it's almost like they're on their best behavior. I think it's just an uncertainty, so they're quieter. They don't instigate anything generally. I mean, some are just like woo, but for the most part, like they can be really, really calm and sweet. And then 3 days later, they're chewing on your other dog's ear, and your other dog's not appreciating it. So you do need to
Right.
give it a little bit of time to let that animal settle in.
And at your shelter or your program, I'll say, do you provide coaching? Like, let's say you get your adoptee home and they start doing something like that, or they're showing a lot of dominance behavior, or your other animal is showing a lot of dominance behavior. Do you then follow up with them if they ask for it to just
Oh, yeah.
provide them with some guidance?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the reason I started the podcast, just because I was spending so much time, whether it was with adopters or with people that want to surrender. I mean, I get probably 20, and again, we're a tiny rescue in an area that is inundated with rescues and shelters, and I probably get 20 outreaches, whether it's phone or email, of people, I need to surrender my dog. And it would be so easy to just say, sorry, we're full, or we're not taking in dogs, or whatever it is. But I always want to pick up the phone and tell me what's going on with your dog.
Right. Right.
Because sometimes I can have a conversation with somebody and give them all kinds of solutions because I've been there, done that, or I've had adopters who've been there, done that. And other times it's, hey, a trainer could resolve that. Or in other times it's, hey, that is super dangerous. You really need to talk to your veterinarian and, and keep that dog away from your kids like now, because I've seen where that behavior goes. And so, yes, we're always available for people that call, but they don't always want to tell you. They think it's a personal failure or something like that, and so you don't necessarily hear about it. But yeah, I think most rescues will certainly call. Will certainly offer whatever advice that they can, or at least point you in the right direction of somebody who they know, because most are pretty well connected. And
Well, and
breeders are the
also,
same, shelters are the same
right.
too.
But they want to make sure that the dog is not a failure, right? Or a cat in that home, or if it is, to move to a different home, right? So
Right.
that's the point, that they just let them go, or kind of just they disappear, or which is sad for that animal.
Right.
So what we're talking about is good, because we were when I asked in the beginning about pet parents, right? So you're really helping the pet parents make some decisions, or the to-be pet parents, on really what would be the best choice for them. Have anybody, like the large dog with a small dog, right? In the context of what you were saying, have you had people say, "But I really want that kind of dog," and what happens then? Do you say no, and you explain to them why, right?
Basically, I mean, we, part of that questionnaire is a screening process, and we have struggled over the years. Like, I would love to call you up and say, look, Nancy, we're not going to adopt this dog to you, and here's why. And the problem is that most of the time people like, or let's just use a cat as an example. You say, oh, our last 3 cats disappeared. We think coyotes got them. Are you planning on keeping this new cat indoors or outdoors? Oh, outdoors. It's like, well, no. If I wanted to, I don't want my cat that I bottle fed from the time it was 4 inches long to be coyote bait. So no. And then, but we've kind of gotten to the point where it's just, we need you to move on because it's not a fit. Because if I say to you, this is why I'm not adopting you. Oh, I won't put it out. It's like, well, past behavior is a pretty darn good predictor of future performance. So I'm thinking that you probably will. And people are usually not happy about it. Declawing is another big hang up for us. There's no reason to cut off an animal's toes. So no, I'm not going to adopt to you when all of your other cats have been declawed and you intended to declaw this one as well.
Wow. Yeah.
And, so we do, but yes, I mean, I will talk to people about fit, and it's just no matter how, and I'm a communication expert, right? So I feel like I have pretty good skills on phrasing it in a way that is as palatable as you can make a rejection message, and they're still not happy. And so, sometimes I'll even just say, do you want to know? Because you're not going to probably love the answer, but I'm happy to share it with you. So
I think that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I give them the option.
But they need to know, right? Because then what happens if they do, and then something happens, and then they're going to be mad at you. So you've got to be honest with them.
Right.
But this is, I mean, I think people that adopt and foster, or maybe foster is a little more, rigorous in some ways, but, or just go to a breeder, but don't know the breeder. They mean well, but sometimes they just don't understand what it takes. When this is what you're trying to do is help them, educate them on, okay, this is what this breed's like. This is what this breed's like. And what's your lifestyle with this survey or the it's not the application you said, but the adoption papers to see what fits with them. And I think that that's really crucial for any rescue or any breeder. I mean, I think breeders would feel the same way. They don't want their animals to go somewhere where the pet parents mean well, but they're not. They don't know certain things, and so they're not really taking the best care.
So, Amy, we're just about at the end of our time, and I'm wondering if you have a message to leave with listeners. A final message.
I guess what I would say is I don't think there's a magic, just like with grief itself, right? There's not a magic time that you say, oh, it should be over at this time. It should be over at this time. You should have moved on by now, whatever the case may be. It's the same thing with making the decision to bring another animal into your family. There's no right time. It's whatever is the right time for you. And I think by asking yourself some honest questions, by doing the things that we've talked about today in, putting your toe in the water and see how that water feels before you dive headfirst in is probably a great way to figure out where you are in that process.
That's great. And I also just want to emphasize a theme that you've been delivering, which is you should listen to the organization from which you're trying to adopt. You should listen to their consultation because they have deep experience. And if they tell you that the animal who you've got your heart set on because you've seen a photo of them maybe on Pet Finder isn't going to be the best one, then you should heed that and that might be a little loss for you right there, but listen to them and they'll help you to find an animal who's probably going to fit your life much better. So we want to thank you very much.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you.
And I just also want to repeat some of your contacts. So we've been talking with Amy Castro. She is the president of Starlight Outreach and Rescue. You can learn more at starlightoutreachandrescue.org. And you can hear more wisdom from her at starlightpettalk.com. You can also learn more about her at amycastro.com. All of this is in the description. And also, if this program has been helpful for you, please consider subscribing, leaving a comment, giving a thumbs up, because that always helps to increase the visibility of the program. Thank you again, Amy, so much.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you for having me here.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Take care.